So, this wasn't on my content calendar, but thanks to a conversation in my Discord server and the fact that I'm neck deep in a Star Wars hyperfixation, this video happened. Shout out to Bob and Jin for the spark of inspiration. This video will contain spoilers for the Skywalker Saga, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Other M, and Metroid Dread. You've been warned. The discussion that kicked this off was Bob pointing out about how Ravenbeak from Metroid Dread is basically Darth Vader. And while I can see how someone could land on that take, I actually agree more with Jin's response. Ravenbeak is way more of a Palpatine figure, despite the armored appearance and pseudo-father dynamic with Samus. Quick refresher for those who need it, Ravenbeak is the main antagonist of Metroid Dread. He's a Chozo warlord and the genetic donor used to enhance Samus' abilities. Throughout the game, he manipulates her journey throughout planet ZDR, not to help her, but to eventually extract the Metroid DNA and fuse with her during fusion, DNA that saved her from death after an X-parasite infection. Why does he want it? Well, with her Metroid-infused biology, he could harvest her cells and use them to recreate Metroids under his control and dominate the galaxy with them. Naturally, that's not on Samus's or the Galactic Federation's agenda. Here's where their Palpatine comparison starts to make more sense. Vader and Palpatine are both terrifyingly powerful villains, but for different reasons. Vader is a weapon forged from grief, rage, betrayal. His story is personal, rooted in the trauma of losing his mom, his wife, and the trust he had in the Jedi. He lashes out violently, emotionally. He's a storm of pain and vengeance. Palpatine, though, is cold, quiet, calculating. He doesn't charge into battle. He orchestrates everything from behind the curtain. He manipulates, he waits, and then it strikes when it benefits him the most. This is Ravenbeak. Yes, he's physically imposing and battle-hardened, but his real power lies in his manipulation. He imprisons Quiet Robe, the last of the Toha Chozo, to use him as a tool. He adapts to the collapse of his own people and crafts a long-term plan while playing the part of a guide for Samus throughout her descent into ZDR, using her AI companion as a guise. Vader wouldn't do that. He'd just storm in and start choking people. If anything, the character that shares more DNA with Anakin Skywalker is Samus. Both are orphans raised in rigid systems after suffering immense trauma. Well, Anakin becomes an orphan later on, but, Samus loses her colony and her parents to Ridley and the Space Pirates. Depending on which version of canon you're experiencing, she's taken in by the Chozo and raised until their eventual destruction. They imbue her with Chozo DNA, giving her enhanced strength, resilience, and speed. In a way, her Chozo DNA is her version of the midichlorians, the biological key to her superhuman abilities. Before Dread and the Samus Returns remake, we viewed the Chozo as a singular ancient race spread across the galaxy, but those two games revealed a split. Two major tribes, the Toha and the Mawkin. The Toha were scholars and scientists. The Mawkin were warriors and conquerors. That split should ring a familiar bell. It sort of mirrors the divide between the Jedi and the Sith. You could even say that the Galactic Federation plays also a role akin to the Jedi Council. Rigid, flawed, bureaucratic. Samus isn't wholly Chozo or wholly human. She exists in the gray area between the two, and both the Chozo and the Federation reflect the same institutional failures that allowed the Jedi to fall. Anakin's fall to the dark side stems largely from the Jedi's refusal to allow emotional bonds. They believe that love leads to fear of loss, fear to suffering, suffering to hatred, and hatred to the dark side, as Yoda says. Their strict rejection of connection, though meant to protect, ultimately leaves Anakin vulnerable to Palpatine's manipulation. Good intentions, poor execution is basically the Jedi Council, and that rot at the core of a good institution is what Palpatine exploits. In Metroid, we see the same rot in both the Toha and the Federation. The Toha created the Metroids as weapons to hunt the X-parasites of SR-388, but when the Metroids began mutating, becoming uncontrollable, the Toha survivors try to destroy them and seal them away, fearing they created something too powerful for the rest of the galaxy. And this is when Ravenbeak struck, killing the Toha, sparing only Quiet Robe and planning to recreate the Metroids using Samus' DNA. Federation isn't innocent either. After Samus wiped out the Metroid population during Metroid 2, she was sent back to SR-388 in Fusion, this time to investigate the rise of the X-parasites in the absence of their predators. She nearly dies from the infection. The only thing that saves her is a Metroid vaccine. And how did Federation have that vaccine on standby when all of the Metroids are supposed to be killed? Because a rogue faction was already working on recreating Metroids in secret aboard the BSL research station. Now, Fusion's localization implies that the entire Federation was in on it, but Dread will then clarify that it was a rogue unit within the Federation, and the Federation itself is still relatively okay. Still, the damage was done, and Samus, like Anakin, sees firsthand how institutional ideals can be twisted for power and control. Interestingly, Samus continues working with the Federation during Time of Dread, suggesting they're not a full analog to the Jedi, but the failure of systems and the exploitation of power is a shared theme and is a major theme of Fusion. In Star Wars, Qui-Gon Jinn was one of the few Jedi who pushed back against the Order's rigidity, believing in compassion and emotional bonds. He was seen as a rebel for that. Quiet Robe, in a way, reflects that role in Metroid Dread. He was a pacifist and a moral compass for the short time that we see him, and he was ultimately silenced by the machinery of war. This is around the time when Anakin and Samus' paths begin to diverge. Anakin Skywalker was born into slavery. He lived with his mother on Tatooine until he was discovered by Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who believed Anakin was the prophesied chosen one. Qui-Gon freed him and intended to train him, but after Qui-Gon's death at the hands of Darth Maul, that responsibility fell to his Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan and Anakin grew close enough that Obi-Wan described him as a brother. Had Qui-Gon survived, Anakin might have seen him as a father like Obi-Wan did, but instead, Anakin lost the man who believed in him most, and was left with a mentor who, though well-meaning, wasn't equipped to give him the emotional guidance he needed. Samus, by contrast, lost both of her parents as a child when her colony was wiped out by Ridley and the Space Pirates. Unlike Anakin, she didn't have time with her family. She was taken in immediately by the Chozo. In the Metroid manga, one of her closest caretakers was a Chozo named Grey Voice, though he's unnamed in most other sources. Later on, Ravenbeak would lend his own DNA to enhance her physiology, embedding himself into her origin whether she knew it or not. But Samus wasn't alone. She found other mentors beyond the Chozo, the most notable being Adam Malkovich, her commanding officer in the Galactic Federation. Samus respected Adam above anyone else in the Federation. After his death in Other M, she carried his legacy forward, helping uncover the truth behind the bottle ship incident and grappling with the emotional aftermath of losing someone she saw as a father figure. That brings us to the baby Metroid, a creature Samus is passively protecting after rescuing it from SR-388 in Metroid 2. Its death in Super Metroid devastated her, and, fun twist, the Federation used its remains as DNA stock to begin cloning more Metroids in secret. So, good job, Federation. Now, here's a fun point. In Star Wars, characters can return after death as beings known as Force Ghosts, but only if they've completed certain spiritual trainings or if they're Anakin and the Force bends the rules a little. In Metroid Fusion, we get a surprisingly similar concept. Adam, the deceased commanding officer Samus once served under, lives on as an AI companion. The Federation claims it's just a normal operating system, but over time, Samus begins to recognize its speech patterns and logic. Eventually, she realizes it's based on Adam's personality and decision-making. He's basically a digital ghost. This becomes important. During the climax of Fusion, this AI disobeys Federation protocol and helps Samus escape a self-destructing station. Through this connection, Samus seems to find closure, or at least a path toward it. She reflects on Adam's influence, respects his teachings, and still makes her own decisions, just as he would have wanted. Anakin never got that. Qui-Gon Jinn, his mentor and guiding voice, appears only once after his death, at least to Anakin. When Anakin's about to commit a massacre, a disembodied voice pleads with him to not give in to hate. But Anakin doesn't listen. He slaughters an entire village of the Tusken Raiders, consumed by rage over his mother's death. It's a pivotal moment, and it's the point where Anakin's descent really starts to begin. After this, Anakin's remaining mentors don't have the stability or emotional availability to help him. Yoda, while immensely wise and powerful, clings to the Order's rigid detachment from emotion. Obi-Wan tries his best, but he's grieving too, over Qui-Gon's death, over his sudden responsibility, and over the weight of the prophecy. And also in Metroid. In Star Wars, a chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored. This line becomes a bit of ironic wordplay because Anakin does bring balance to the Force by helping Palpatine wipe out nearly every Jedi in the galaxy. While these were hundreds of Jedi and only 2 the Sith, Anakin balances the scale in the most tragic way possible. Balance in the technical sense, considering the dark side only had 2, though 2.5 if you're counting what was left of Maul. Metroid's prophecy actually comes in some lore logs that are found in the original Metroid Prime.
Interestingly, so many creatures suffer beneath the blight upon the land, and we Chosen are no exception, but for all of our pain we can at least believe in the promise of the future. We have come to believe that a time may never come when we can once again open the door and banish the darkness we have contained. Even so, our vigilance will forever remain. We believe that on the same far-off day, a Savior will come and continue what we have begun. For that Savior, we will name our ancient weapons and armor. The soul who can gather them will be the entrusted one, the only being who can reverse the evil that grows here. Contain. The containment of the great poison. This task fallen to the Chozo, and we will not flee from our duty, even as we suffer from the land and its creatures. We will pour our will into the 12, the artifacts that, when brought together, form the lock that holds this great evil at bay in the depths of the planet. This lock must stand up to all who might come to assault it. To preserve the power of the seal, and to protect it from those who have meddled for their own designs, we will spread the artifacts across the land, hiding them from prying eyes. The lock must never open until the day comes when this disaster can finally be put right. Prophecy of Light. Throughout our living nightmare, as we battle this unyielding darkness, we chose those seal light. The light glows with a promise, chasing the shadows cast by the great poison and purifying that which has grown toxic. It is strange, though. At times it looks to our eyes as if the light coalesces into the figure of a woman. Burning brightly, the luminescence descends from space and retreats back into the infinite blackness from whence it came. When this prophecy comes to pass, when the light recedes, the Chosen's long vigilance of containment will finally come to an end. Hatchling Shell. The hatchling walks among us. Are these dreams, memories, foretellings? Time and reality swirl together like estuary waters, and we do not know what to believe. She appears as ghost-like as the Chosen, but at times the mists clear. We see her wounded eyes and remember the child we found so long ago. What has she become, this newborn? Clad in Chosen armor, wielding weapons her hands once held, does she dream of the Chosen as we once were? Does she long for her parents, lost to the same creature that even now defile our sacred home? Does she still live? Hatchling. As we struggle with the great poison, something stirs at the edges of our vision. It is the hatchling Samus. We feel her across the void as she hunts the corrupted. Will our fates again be one? As our pride shatters, will prophecy become real? When all strength wanes from the Chosen, will it be the hatchling who fulfills our legacy? True sight eludes us, for the poison gnaws at our vision, leaving seers blind and filled with despair. Truth's blessing may come too late. Cradle. None know of our temple, the Cradle, will prove powerful enough to contain this evil forever. For now, it wraps around that abomination, cutting it off from the world above. However, we believe the power in Cipher, which has been produced by linking the 12 artifacts, should be strong enough. The fate of this world is now left to the one who will collect the artifacts in the future. The time when the entrusted one knows is approaching. Infestation. To the entrusted one, if you read these words, that our hope has not been in vain. Our path is fraught with danger. Monstrosities beyond description lurk in the shadows, starving, hunting for prey, searching for ways to quench the poisonous urges that bloom in their brains. Some of these are shrewd, but they are blinded by their evil designs. Believing in the black promise of the great poison, they seek to harness it for their own ends. It is the last that are the greatest danger. Near the universe of these creatures, you will be the true and trusted one. Hope. More and more, our tormented minds turn to the newborn. As the world continues to shift into brutal, disconnected images, she remains inarguably real. A fearless figure delving deeper into this blighted world, unmindful of the terrors that await her. Was she this way before, when we Chosen found her, a fledgling orphan on a savage planet? Did a warrior's pulse already beat in her veins, filling her with righteous fury? Our hopes lie with her. We leave these messages for her, that she may find her artifacts and deliver the world from its evils. Wraiths we may be, but her reach is still long, indeed. We shall fight the invaders and the poison they would master, until the end.
So we have two stories, two prophecies about a Chosen One rescued from tragedy. In one story, the Chosen One is seen as a weapon to destroy darkness, but is never taught how to process love or connection. That lack of emotional support becomes the crack where despair begins to seep in. Anakin falls, consumed by grief, corrupted by the belief that power could protect what love could not. Those around him, his mentors, his allies, are left broken, realizing too late that they never really understood the pain that he carried. And by the time Anakin sees what he's become, it's only through the eyes of his son, an echo of the hope he once had. His final act of love moves to redeem him, but it comes at the end. In another life, the Chosen One is raised with genuine care. Not perfect, definitely not without tragedy, but not without connection. Samus is molded by the Chosen, flawed and arrogant though they were, and finds meaningful bonds with others. Adam Malkovich, Anthony Higgs, and even the AI version of Adam in Fusion and beyond. Those relationships help her define herself, not just as a soldier or a weapon, but as a person with ideals. Like Anakin, Samus is betrayed by the very institutions that tried to mold her, but unlike him, she doesn't break under the weight of that betrayal. She stops the Federation from reviving the Metroids. She shuts down the rogue faction behind the Battleship incident, and ultimately, she accepts the power of the Metroid DNA within her, not to dominate, but to end a legacy of exploitation and corruption that has haunted the galaxy for decades. By the end of Metroid Dread, she's faced betrayal from both her Chozo and human origins, and has overcome them both. She's probably carrying a hell of a lot emotionally, but her sense of justice remains intact. For now. That leads her next, we'll just have to wait and see. And, okay, real quick, I'm not going to talk too much about Metroid Prime 4, because we still know almost nothing. But I do want to say, Samus basically just has powers of the Force now, so that's pretty funny. Let's go further into the themes of corruption in Prime 3, that game's tagline, and how Rundus, one of the few bounty hunters who actually seem to care about Samus, adds another layer to our experience with betrayal. But that's probably worth a whole separate video when we know more about Prime 4. Anyway, that's everything I wanted to cover for now. Maybe once we learn more about Silex and his vendetta against the Federation, we can revisit some of the idea as the Federation as a mirror to the Space Pirates. A different kind of corruption, but just as dangerous. But until then, thanks for watching, and catch you next time.